So let's start with friendship, because this is where the loneliness really hit me after I got sick, which I put air quotes around that, by the way, for anyone that's not watching the YouTube version. It was just a night and day shift to when I got diagnosed and when I started like recognizing that like my chronic illness was real and was chronic and wasn't going away. I feel like that's when the loneliness really started to hit me, was when I started like telling people in my life that I had endometriosis and then had to like explain what it was over and over and over again because people didn't know what it was. And even when I would explain it, they didn't understand what that meant or like what the pain was in my life. There's this weird space that opens up when you become chronically ill. Suddenly, you're not the person who says yes to everything anymore. You're the one who might cancel, the one that needs accommodations, the one that's always tired or in pain or just not as spontaneous. And slowly, these friendships start to shift. And I remember canceling plans 3 times in a row with somebody that I really loved and respected and wanted to hang out with. And instead of asking if I was okay, they just stopped reaching out, which I can understand it from both sides, but it really just made me feel like my illness was ruining my life. And it made me feel invisible, and that kind of loss, it's not loud, it's quiet, but it still stings. Guilt that you can't show up the way that you want to, or guilt that your symptoms are just inconvenient and that people think that you're making excuses and that you're flaky and that you don't show up to things, and you start ghosting people, not because you don't care, but because it takes a lot of energy that you just don't have. So for me and other people that are chronically ill, you have to meet the needs that keep you alive before you text people back. And even texting someone back feels like a whole task when you're in a flare. And before you know it, you're lonely, you're alone, and you're ashamed of being lonely. And it sucks, and you don't feel like the same person that you were before being chronically ill. We're taught that being a good friend means always being available, always showing up, always giving a shit ton of energy, really. But when you live in a body that can't do those things, you start believing that maybe you aren't a good friend. And maybe you don't, but really that's the internalized ableism talking. You can be a good friend and also need a lot of rest. You can be reliable and also need flexibility. And I wholeheartedly believe that I am that.